I want to welcome you to our press conference, and I'd like to introduce our speaker, Brian Westbrook, Executive Director of Coalition Life, who has a very important announcement.
On October 11th, 2022, abortion entered the borders of Carbondale with the opening of an abortion facility on Giant City Road. Not long after, an abortion facility opened on West Main Street, with a third mega abortion facility by Planned Parenthood currently under construction on North Emerald Lane. The city of Carbondale is rolling out the red carpet for these places of death, deception, and confusion. We know by simple observation that 82% of all those going into these abortion facilities don't even live in Illinois. As a flippant disregard for the serious nature of this situation, one city council member suggested in an email that abortion would be good for the hotel or the restaurant business and would generate more tax dollars for the city. To be clear, the people of Southern Illinois do not want these abortion facilities. On January 10, 2023, the Carbondale City Council ignored the will of the people by passing 14-4-2, Section H, in the Disorderly Conduct Ordinance. With a room packed full of citizens opposing this ordinance, the City Council had to beg anyone to speak in favor of this unconstitutional and anti-American bubble zone. The City Council gave little justification for this anti-free speech bubble zone, but instead resorted to calling us names as weird, weirdos, creepy, phony, or simply entitled. When asked a simple question about how this bubble zone would be enforced, the city attorney claimed that this was, quote, attorney-client privilege and would be handled on a case-by-case basis. The effect of this and other dodging comments is a chilling effect on our sidewalk counselors and regular phone calls to the police that result in a wide variety of requests. We're told where we can and can't stand, what we can and cannot wear, that we can't simply smile and wave. And most egregious, that one volunteer couldn't pass out a copy of the Holy Bible. This city council would have you believe that we here at Coalition Life are nothing but a nuisance. Yet we provide a much needed service on the sidewalks outside these abortion facilities. Women come from miles away because they feel like they have absolutely no other option. Yet we and the 90+ pregnancy centers and millions of citizens stand with them. We provide all of our services completely for free, from pregnancy testing, ultrasounds, STI testing, housing, counseling, car payments, diapers, maternity clothes, and adoption services. The abortion facility and the industry that they support is unwilling to provide any of this to women and goes to great lengths to hide these resources from them. The city did get one thing right. We are entitled. As U.S. citizens, we are entitled to our First Amendment rights to free speech identified in our founding documents. We are entitled to have our voices heard, and the women and their preborn children are entitled to know their options. We stand here today to fulfill a promise. Before the passage of this so-called bubble zone, we promised the City Council we would take legal action to the highest courts in the land, if necessary. And we intend to do just that. Today, Coalition Life is filing a federal lawsuit pushing back against this overbroad power grab of a radical Carbondale City Council. We filed this lawsuit not just for our work in Carbondale, but on behalf of all citizens, regardless of their views. Yet mostly for the preborn children who are lost and have lost their lives through poisoning or dismemberments in these buildings. We fight back for the millions of women who are suffering a lifetime of regret after delivering a dead baby in their toilet through a chemical abortion. It's an honor to serve and to bring light to the single greatest human rights violation of all time, abortion. And I'm honored to stand alongside our great friends, the Thomas More Society, who also understand that all life is precious and deserving of protection. Thank you.
Now we invite Peter Green, Executive Vice President and Head of Litigation with the Thomas More Society. Welcome.
Thank you. Again, my name is Peter Green, B-R-E-E-N, with the Thomas More Society. We are a national public interest law firm headquartered in Chicago. And what we've done this morning is filed with the Federal District Court for the Southern District of Illinois a straightforward, clear lawsuit seeking to have the City of Carbondale's bubble zone ordinance struck down as unconstitutional. Now, this isn't the first time we've gone to litigation against an Illinois municipality on this topic. We litigated a case called Price v. Chicago, where we came after the City of Chicago on behalf of local pro-life activists there. We're able to get a strong settlement in terms of, because of the as-applied nature of unconstitutional nature of the way they apply their ordinances. However, in a decision at the Seventh Circuit, we were unsuccessful in getting our facial challenge to get the whole ordinance thrown out. But in that decision from the Seventh Circuit, on that panel was a judge, it was then Judge Amy Coney Barrett, who is now Justice Amy Coney Barrett. And she and her colleagues made a strong statement about why this law, or this sort of law, is actually unconstitutional, but that the U.S. Supreme Court needed to overturn it. Well, just this past year, in the Dobbs decision, the U.S. Supreme Court stated very clearly that they believe that this sort of bubble zone activity was a victim of the abortion distortion of our laws, and our constitutional law in particular, the First Amendment right to free speech. Folks, you have a right to speak, and the government cannot restrict your right because it doesn't like your viewpoint. We know here that while this ordinance is going to cover 153 medical facilities in the city of Carbondale, it's really only aimed at 2 that are here right now, another one on the way, as Brian had mentioned, a gigantic Planned Parenthood, and any more abortion facilities that are intended to be built here in Carbondale. Now, the City Council of Carbondale appears fine with turning Carbondale into a hub for abortion for the entire southeastern and midwestern United States. We very much disagree with that as a practical matter, a policy matter, a moral matter. But in terms of the Constitution, you can't stop the citizens from speaking and working and interacting, and in this case, offering an alternative, a real alternative, to women who are at risk for abortion, because they have a right to hear, to speak to, and to be ministered to by those that are not trying to sell them an abortion. That's just common sense. Doesn't matter the product. You need someone who is not there with a financial interest to take care of your needs. I would just give you one example from the deliberations in the city of Carbondale. If you're in any way doubting that this ordinance was directly aimed at Coalition Life and Brian and his whole team's work and these beautiful people behind me, they originally had drafted the ordinance for 50 feet. So it'd be a 50-foot anti-speech buffer around all the healthcare facilities. And they realized when they went out and looked at the maps, they said, wait, that's not going to stop Brian and Coalition Life from doing what they do. So the city attorney said, well, that doesn't even get you off the parking lot. So they extended it to 100 feet to make sure they targeted very directly pro-life speech happening outside of the city's current 2 and future abortion clinics. We feel very confident that at the end of the day, we can get this case up to a place where it will be heard and we will be able to get justice for not just the folks in Carbondale, that their free speech rights would be upheld, but for folks around the country. You know, after the Supreme Court made its statement in the Dobbs decision, it really is like an invitation to us as lawyers to come and bring them a case. You know, they didn't take the case in 2019. It wasn't quite the right time. But now that we've got an express statement in the Dobbs holding, we believe that now is the correct time. And it's just the right thing to do. I will tell you, in my work, both here in Illinois and around the country, I'm a former legislator in the Illinois House for 2 terms. I have seen that in states where we call them the blue states for lack of a better term, legislators have totally sold out to the abortion industry because they get money from them, they get supporters from them. It makes political sense. And we're from Illinois, we understand, you know, what sharp-edged politics is about. The problem is, it's one thing to give advantages to abortion facilities and abortion providers. It's another thing to restrict your citizens' rights, their fundamental rights to speak, to advocate. And really, why in the world is it a problem that we would give women in need and their families more options, more help? And this, you know, the law that we are suing over today is one of a number of them that are coming down the pike here in Illinois and have been hitting us on the pro-life side across the country. I have deemed it really the war on pregnancy help ministries. We've got a bill in Springfield, looks like it's going to be signed, that would restrict the speech of pregnancy centers and pregnancy help ministries like Coalition Life, you know, trying to claim that pro-life speech is somehow a deceptive business practice. So that's what we're fighting. This is really a really strong step in that broader struggle that you're seeing across the country. And we've seen here in Carbondale, national media outlets are watching what's happening here because of the fact, folks, these abortion clinics are moving here from other states, and every state surrounding Illinois has more restrictive abortion regulations than we do here. Here in Illinois, instead, we're soon enough going to be having chemical abortions available at every Walgreens and CVS, every corner pharmacy. You've already got nurses being allowed to do early surgical abortions. You've got, you know, now insurance providers required to provide coverage for elective abortions. It's the sort of thing that it's so very much in favor of the abortion side. The people who object and who want to offer an alternative deserve their voice. They deserve their rights. And especially here in this state, we know I served with many fine legislators who represented Carbondale, and they kept going, what is with you guys in Chicago imposing your values on us here in Carbondale and in Southern Illinois? And as somebody who serves, lives outside of Chicago, served there, it's a good question. Why should these folks here in Southern Illinois be turned into the abortion hub for a good third of the country? It's not right. It doesn't make any sense. And we hope that with this lawsuit, maybe we'll teach the city council of the city of Carbondale a lesson about what the First Amendment requires. And maybe we'll help to make life a little bit easier for our folks here, our pro-life advocates, and really give women a true choice, which is what they're trying to do. Thank you very much. And I think we've got a good pastor. I might have talked longer than you, Pastor, which is always dangerous. So I'll give you the vote.
We'd like to thank you so much. We want to welcome Reverend Mark Serberg, who is a pastor not far from Carbondale, Lutheran minister at Good Shepherd Lutheran Church in Marion, Illinois. Pastor.
I don't tend to speak as long as our previous 2 speakers. I am here standing in support as a religious leader, a person of faith, speaking on behalf and in support of this lawsuit being brought by Coalition Life and the Thomas More Society. As a Christian, we speak on behalf of life because God is the giver of all life. We have experienced the love of God in His Son, Jesus Christ, through His death and resurrection. And that love motivates us to both speak on behalf of life and carry out life-affirming activities. Those who live in the area around Carbondale, as we have seen the abortion industry come into Carbondale, wish to speak to women to give them options besides the killing of their baby, to help them to avoid the trauma that this is going to entail. And yet we have found that this bubble ordinance restricts us from doing that. We live in a country, or blessed live in a country, where our constitutional freedoms guarantee us the free exercise of religion and also freedom of speech in religious matters. And this ordinance that's been passed by the Carbondale City Council restricts those. It violates our freedoms, it violates our rights, and therefore I'm very, very thankful that Coalition Life and the Thomas More Society have brought this lawsuit, and I will certainly keep it in my prayers that it reaches a successful conclusion.
With that, we welcome any questions that anyone might have.
Just to be clear, this suit is just for the city of Carbondale, right?
I didn't want to give you a preview of our, well, I gave you a preview. We do have a lawsuit being prepared for when Governor Pritzker signs Senate Bill 1909. But this suit right here is one that really it needs to be brought, and is one that we believe will get the attention of the highest court in the land. We're hoping that the suit over 1909, while important to the entire state, hopefully we'll get an injunction in the district court, not have to take it up as high as the U.S. Supreme Court. But as folks know, at Thomas More Society, we've taken plenty of cases to the Supreme Court. We're pretty good at winning them when we get there. And so that's, we'll take it as far as we need to. But this particular matter right here, this is a real, I think, a real shot in the arm for folks here in Carbondale who are wondering what is going on with our city council, what is going on with our city, and what is going on with our area here in Southern Illinois. We're giving them a chance to come back. And it's a good, strong case that the Supreme Court said that we think this was a distortion of First Amendment law. So I think we're very hopeful we're going to get a good response as we continue up the chain with this particular lawsuit.
Because of the current makeup of the Supreme Court, you feel this case will go better than say the one in Chicago, where you didn't get everything you want.
Right. Well, and what we got in Chicago was, oftentimes in the law it develops. You don't get everything you want each time. The decision in Chicago from the Seventh Circuit made it very clear the law should be overturned, but they were waiting for the Supreme Court to do it. And of course, one of the judges who was on that decision is now on that Supreme Court. But even back looking at Hill v. Colorado, there's a decision from the year 2000. Justice Anthony Kennedy, who was considered more of a moderate swing justice, but who was very strong on free speech, he wrote a scathing dissent. That was a very tight decision. And so certainly this has never been the sort of this Hill v. Colorado decision from 2000. It's always been on shaky ground. But now it looks like we are prepared to take out that ground. And look, what are we asking for? Equal treatment for everybody. We all know that the public sidewalk is the property of the public. You can hand out leaflets if you want. You can preach. You can do whatever you like. Walk around, throw a football as long as you're not hurting anybody, whatever. It's a public sidewalk. So this idea that somehow we could restrict this type of speech in front of these kind of facilities has always been an insult to our constitutional order.
Yeah, as the fact of, the stance on abortion notwithstanding, how important was it for this to be framed as a First Amendment lawsuit?
Well, it is. So under the First Amendment, we've got the viewpoint discrimination concept there. So if something is viewpoint discriminatory, it is nearly in every case unconstitutional, just per se. It goes back to whether you're giving advantage to speech about unions. We actually have two cases out of Illinois where the legislature and the city council of Chicago had made exceptions. They'd restricted speech, but made exceptions for speech on union matters. Well, the Supreme Court said, no, you can't do that. It's either speech for everybody or speech for nobody. You can't, what we call is the time, place, and manner restrictions. But here what they've done is very clearly, they're going after the speech of these pro-life advocates who are outside the city's 2 and soon 3+ abortion facilities.
And what I believe was said earlier, I can't remember which one, but what you're saying is the Carbondale City Council or anybody could not give any examples of one of the protesters going above what they probably should have, anything like that. They couldn't give one example of any groups or anything like that.
And this is the other issue. And as a lawyer, when I'm looking at a First Amendment case, I want to see, did you have any reason to enact this ordinance or the state law or federal law for that matter? And we keep looking and looking and looking in cases around the country, not just here. There are no instances, or they'll, you look at the instance, you go, that was what you're calling a reason to infringe on people's First Amendment rights. And so that's here in Carbondale, we had that situation. Same thing, the SB 1909 debate. There were FOIA requests made of the Attorney General's office for complaints and reports. Actually, in that tranche of documents that came back, it was clear there were no complaints and reports of deceptive business practices. But what they did have was a couple of police reports from Carbondale, one of which was where a sidewalk counselor, and it may have been a prayer vigil participant, they were on public right-of-way, but they were called on by, the police were called by the abortion clinic. They said, get off the property, you're trespassing. And he said, wait, I got the map right here. I'm not on the property. And the police went back and looked and said, oh, you're not. And in another one, they said, well, you parked your ultrasound van in the wrong spot. And, and of course, it's a free country. You can park the ultrasound van where they were parked. And so those are the examples that are in the public record of issues in the city of Carbondale. They're non-issues. And certainly as a First Amendment lawyer, I'm familiar with some, more vigorous means of protest. You're not seeing it here. These are this is low key, just person to person, folks peacefully praying. The work of Coalition Life, it doesn't work if they're being loud and boisterous. They're there to talk to folks and offer them alternatives. You don't, think about it. You're not going to talk to somebody that's screaming at you or waving, signs in your face. Yeah. So that's the sort of conduct that these folks here in the city council think they can restrict. It's just outrageous. I would be more outraged if I didn't see so many other units of government trying the same thing. And so, and that's a shame. I want to keep my sense of outrage. Brian's good at it. I'm as a lawyer, I've got a professional attachment. But
as your expert who's gone through some of this, what are you looking at as far as timeline? What are you hoping to get in front of a judge? When you're hoping to get a ruling? How quickly does this kind of stuff happen? I know this is going to take a while because hopefully it goes up to the Supreme Court like you want. But when are you kind of hoping something happens?
This is a little more of a unique situation because we have a case right on point in the Seventh Circuit, which includes Illinois and Wisconsin and Indiana. So the case law is clear. We need to go up. So we would expect it to move pretty quickly. We'll certainly reach out to the lawyers from the city and see what they need. Anything further, we're always glad to be collegial, but we're right on this point. So we're certainly not yield the point. But yeah, you serve the complaint, you get 21 days to respond, and from there, we expect to move pretty quickly.
Brian, can I ask you?
Sure.
You both mentioned how the bubble prevents options for these women. Do you have any idea how successful your sidewalk counselors are when they get a chance to talk to these women and preventing them from going through with an abortion?
Right, absolutely. So Coalition Life has been around for 11 years. And so we've now seen in that 11-year time frame, 3,600 women more who have left these abortion facilities and had a chance to choose life for their babies. And so we know that on average, we have about a 1% turnaround rate. So if we talk to 100 people, one of them are going to leave and find other options for their baby.
So what do you think City of Carbondale did this? Like you mentioned earlier that a lot of opposition to this and everything, but the City Council continued to do it. Why would they want to continue to have that double and everything?
Sure. As you look at the map of the country, even Grey's Anatomy, the primetime television show, points out Southern Illinois as being the hotbed for abortion. You look at the map, all of the variety of states surrounding Illinois are all, restricting abortion pretty heavily. And so that makes Southern Illinois the hotbed of where you would want to go if you are an abortion facility. So Choice is actually from Memphis, Tennessee. Alamo is from Texas. And then, of course, Planned Parenthood is planning to build this, mega abortion facility because they understand that this is the last viable, quote unquote, abortion or town in Southern Illinois. The only other place they could go is Metropolis, down on the southern tip.
But what do you think the city of Carbondale gets out of all this, though? I mean, if we talk about Southern Illinois values and everything like that, Carbondale does tend to kind of lean a little bit more toward the left a little bit. What do you think they get out of all this?
I mean, the only thing we can do is assume, right? So if we're assuming that they were paid for and elected by the abortion industry for this specific purpose, and they're just returning the favor. But again, that's an assumption that we would have, and I don't know if there's anything really to say about that.
Kind of your expert opinion, though, seeing around this a little bit.
Only our assumptions. Any other questions? Sure. So Peter's giving me tips here around the corner. So what we do want to say is it's more than just about the 1%, right? So every single woman we talk to, we give them literature we hand-build. It's protected under the First Amendment rights of our Constitution. So as we hand-build, offer information, we get phone calls even after the fact. Our Pregnancy Center, Women's Care Connect, on a regular basis gets phone calls directly from these brochures that we're handing out to them. And so many times they're changing their mind even after the fact. So we're seeing hundreds of women on a regular basis. We serve through the Pregnancy Center about 900 clients per year, not to mention the 3,000 pregnancy centers nationwide who are serving these clients as well. So that's the goal, is to shut down pregnancy centers, whether it's through SB 1909 or through this so-called bubble zone. Any final words? All right, with that, we thank everyone for coming out, and have a fantastic day.